No one.
No one, okay.
I'll
Thomas.
entertain you for 2 minutes.
Too late now.
Well, let's go right to topics. We have our chief of police here. Last week, we had some residents up there on the top of Meads Mountain who were very concerned about the out-of-control parking.
Not
potential-
just Meads Mountain.
Well, other areas of town too, but they were from that. They were here to address that. There are other areas in town as well. So I just want to, first of all, let the public know that the chief of police and the highway superintendent and myself had a meeting, I believe it was yesterday, with Mr. Jeff Ryder from the DEC, who is the agency, of course, that oversees the operations of Overlook Mountain. They asked not to disclose any specifics, except that they are engaged in efforts which they hope will lead to, at least for the immediate future, a relief of that situation. And again, there are negotiations going on, and they just don't want to muddle things up. Now, of course, this is not going to happen before this year. They are hoping, though, and he did say that this is a top priority of the office in New Paltz. This is a top priority for them to address the situation up there on the top of the hill. So that is kind of where we're at right now. There have been different ideas about what do we do in the meantime. In the meantime, what I asked the DEC to do is whatever messaging they have, I don't know if they Facebook or whatever it is that they do, let the world know that we have this wonderful trail, that perhaps they could include in their message that the town of Woodstock is, even if it's stretching things a little bit, is, very hot and heavy about enforcing traffic and may establish a tow-away zone, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and just make people think twice before they just abandon their cars there and go tromping up on the hill. So that's where it's at right now. I know Clayton is here to answer any questions that we might have as far as what local law enforcement can do about the situation.
So we will continue to pursue local enforcement.
Oh, of course.
Well, my sense of it is that we should, based on some of the discussion from last time, is that we should put up new signs indicating a $100 fine with arrows indicating the area to be covered and also indicating tow-away zone. I was thinking about that discussion of tow-away, and it's a good idea, but it will take a while before any of those private companies or any others are able to come up and start dealing with vehicles that have been ticketed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that we need to do both. Put a heavy fine up there and over at the stream side, and also at as well as the Meads Mountain Road.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my input for the time.
So you're talking about amending our local law, because that's how we would have to do that. We'd have to amend.
You'll have to wait till they're right now, they're
parking
on.
and regulations and amend the local law. Now, I would hesitate to make all our parking infractions $100 fines. So you're thinking of carving out specific areas of the town?
Just the two, Mead Mountain, and also.
Well, if we're gonna do it though, we should just look at the records and just see if there are any others. Look.
My suggestion for the time being, Bill, is the two spaces, Mead Mountain and the stream side.
Right.
Well, actually, the chief could probably answer. I mean, do we have any other areas? Orchard Lane.
Throughout the summer.
Is it Orchard or
Elwood?
Yes.
Throughout the summertime, we certainly do have, when you traffic you impacted the village area.
Right.
But I'd rather not see a real large fine on the parking tickets. The tickets are $25 right now. And if they're not paying within 72 hours, they go up to $40. which, I feel that's a lot stiffer than it has been in the past. How many years ago, it used to be just $15, And we also want to, be able to welcome the people to our town, instead of,
Right.
have
We don't want to chase them.
have a bad feeling when they come back, from a hike up on a mountain, and their car may be towed, or they'll set the penalty ticket. Did talk to the forest ranger yesterday with the supervisor, and he did assure us that they're forest ranger, and they have volunteers also that monitor Overlook Mountain. If we can have their volunteers and their ranger to help us to educate people where to park. There is parking further down towards the Magic Meadow entrance. If people want to walk a little bit further to come back up.
Right.
Except we just have to educate people to park down there. Somehow we have to get that point across.
Now, is the White Dove, is that Elm Lane?
No, the White Dove is Orchard Lane by the movie house.
Because Orchard Lane is another place where there have been cars parked where they're not supposed to be parked. So that Orchard Lane is something that we noted.
I talked to that property owner today, and he told me that he was engaged in an effort to remedy that situation. We'll see if he's successful or not.
And how, Millstream did not seem as bad this year to me as in past years.
You know, there were some days
I
that-
think it was pretty
There was a
bad.
couple, but it was nowhere near what it was last year.
But I think you were taking care of it. Somebody complained to me about how everybody's
Yeah,
getting.
that's why I wanted to ask the
But-
chiefs. So,
With Millstream Road, we have had our moments down there. The officers are taking vehicles. It's hard. Any of these places, people come here from a distance away, and they park their vehicles, and it's like up on Leeds Mountain. What's their going? They're going for
Hours.
hours. Except this past weekend when the snow or the
Rain.
the rainstorm. Thinking about winter time, the clouds were setting, and the other potential rainstorm. The cars did clear out real fast. We had one car that was blocked and double parked. And we asked the person to be patient, and within the hour, the person that blocked me, did come down off the mountain. Problem with towing a vehicle is, as soon as you tow it, you may have a family stranded, that's from another state, that came here to enjoy, our city, beauty and mountain, and all of a sudden, their vehicle's in an impound yard somewhere, and
How did they get from there to there?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, but a fine though, I understand, I agree with you about not stranding them, I do agree. I agree, I think we ought to have tow-away zone signs so that it kind of makes them pay more attention, but I think the fine is fair.
Well, also about the fine, if you went to New York or something, $25, you can't even park your car on the lot for $25.
$25,
So
right.
I think a $25 ticket for the locals might be a lot, but for some of these people who are coming in, they're like, oh, is that all my ticket was? So I think we should at least make it 50 or something a little bit stiffer than 25, because that's not gonna hurt anybody. It may hurt a few people, but not really.
People that live here more than likely
Right.
know not to do that.
the people who are parking there are not local people.
they may only come once, once a year, or maybe once ever. We just would like to have these people, be able to come back and join the town. I think.
Well, another thing that exacerbated the situation was the county's tourist office apparently issued a little publication announcing that the Millstream was one of the 7 best swimming holes in the whole
Oh,
county.
no.
So I had
Where
a
is my
conversation
pond?
today with Rick, and I said to him, number one, like, wherever you posted that message, please remove it, number one. And number two, anytime that you're going to promote tourism that affects the town of Woodstock, please talk to the supervisor's office first. I pointed out to him that Woodstock is really captive to its geography. Unlike Saugerties, New Paltz, Plattekill, which are all flat and located right next to the freeway, we are just a bunch of dells crowded in between mountains. And we simply do not have a facility for handling crowds like our neighboring towns do. And I explained this to him. And I said, so, when you talk about steering people here, please talk to me first. If you want to steer them to the Playhouse for an 8 o'clock performance, great, we'll take that. But, swimming holes and this kind of stuff, no, not a good idea at all.
How about the other 2 swimming holes, Big Deep and Little Deep? No.
I don't see much traffic there.
No.
Or a big deep?
I I never hear any.
There's enough parking. I guess.
space, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
And I
my
think
my
the
granddaughter
sign,
lives down there and my daughter lives down there, and I don't see any real problem.
the sign is the best thing. I know the people that own Gallows, they were, I mean, it was just infuriating for them because people would pull in there. They'd come from wherever they were working on the property and come up and they go, "Where's Big D?" So he called me at one time and he said, "Please, could you do me a favor and put up the sign?" I said, "Well, I don't have the authority to put up the sign, but somehow somebody must have heard that we needed a sign."
Yes,
So
but
there
that's-
is a
Yeah, I
sign.
told
And
Michael to go for the sign.
And that's the second
Yeah.
sign. The first one you couldn't read because it was script. And the big deep, and it's a big deep road, and it was all smushed together in script.
Right,
And now it just says big deep.
the Big Deep or something like that, yeah. Yep, so that
I'll
helps.
give Michael credit. I didn't design the sign.
Yeah. No, but that helps.
Yeah,
I don't get any family reports of problems down there as far as parking.
yeah, I haven't heard any complaints
Things like
from
that.
that neck of the woods. Or the other one, you know, Little Deep.
Seems to me, Meets Mountain Road, McDaniel Road, and Mill Street,
Yeah.
this summer.
The three neighborhoods.
So all these places that we're talking about cleaning up in terms of, talk about Orchard Lane and all these other places we talked about. So are there gonna be signs going up? I mean, some of them already have signs, I guess, but are we gonna double check the signs, make sure there's sufficient signage before we start doing a big push for?
The signs have to be, if you wanted to stand up in a court of law, and we do have very fastidious justices, the signs can be spaced no less than 200 feet apart. And when Michael placed those signs, he was very careful to place them no less than 200 feet
In
apart.
each place that we just talked
In each
about?
place that we just talked about, with the exception of Orchard Lane.
Okay.
I did speak to Michael, just a little while ago, and you did ask him, about posting, more signs like on Meets Mountain Road, within the 200 feet, you'll put a sign every 100 feet, if that would help.
Well, that's where we'll put the tollway signs.
We're gonna have a lot of signage,
Yeah.
which,
That's better than
That's
cars.
the other problem, too many signs.
That's better than cars.
So can we move ahead with changing the situation?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jay, why don't you drag up that local law, it's in the code, and make a proposal.
I'll do that.
And we'll schedule a public hearing and start hanging people.
Jackie will be kind
I'll help
enough to figure that for me.
I'm working tomorrow, then I'm off Thursday, Friday, so make sure you see me tomorrow. Although there's Lynn and Michelle in the office, they can help me.
On another note, today, for example, you wanted to fix the bottom of the road right here with the pillars so that there was more space.
Yeah, yes.
So today I was trying to turn up here to come up and there were like cars turning out. So I was waiting, so I waited for 1, 2, 3, and now they're all building up behind me because I can't make a left turn because it's really a little too narrow to make that left turn if somebody's not quite over enough. So I suggest we relook that and take care of that because I think it's going to start causing backups in town. Because there were like at least 3 or 4 cars, and then someone started blowing their horn at me. I thought, oh, this is good.
So what I would suggest, Kathy, is that you go with Jay to the Como Advisory Committee peoples, because that's where it got stalled the first time. They seemed to think.
Is it
that was not
CSAC?
CSAC.
They
They were not thrilled with the proposal,
no.
so they might need a little more.
A little push.
I'll remind you, and I'll be
Are
happy
they-
to go to.
I get confused with that committee.
Let's Terry.
Let's
No, I
check.
know the committee, but I mean, why would they be able to stop you when they're only
It's not
advisory
stopping,
board?
it's not stopping, they
Oh.
didn't stop.
Oh, okay.
But it's, it's better to co-opt than it is to.
It is dangerous though, at any time,
Totally.
trying to get in and out
Let me-
of
let
it,
me ask
especially
you-
in soccer.
Jay, did you bring them a proposal? When you went to CSAC, did you bring a specific proposal?
That was not a written, a verbal.
Okay, because I know I spent time down there with Mike, and we came up with some plan quite some time ago.
Well, I've done the same thing.
Yeah, I know.
Like, and looking at one side or the other, or both sides. And, but at that time, and at those times, actually, CSAC was formidably opposed to making any changes. And I think it's time for
I think
another
it's
push.
time.
Did they, what was the,
I saw what you were talking about.
what was
today.
their issue?
Pardon?
What was their concern?
It's a matter of maintaining the property as it is, you know, and, you know, I'm not, I think we need to adapt.
Yeah, I mean, we just built a bigger soccer field, we're putting
Bigger
signs up,
parking
we're
lot.
promoting trails.
Putting up a
Right.
kiosk.
We're inviting,
Inviting people up.
we're inviting people to come up here, we need
Yeah.
to make it safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I happened to witness what Kathy was talking about, I was in line there. No, I couldn't follow along, but I will next time. So,
Is it a
it's-
meeting, what's the exact Monday?
Are we done with the chief of police?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to ask one more question
Yes.
of the chief.
Mhm.
We had talked about sound meters in the past, having to do with trying to measure sound. Is there anything we need to do on that subject? I mean, I did a sort of a research on what's available, but maybe the issue wasn't quite what it was explained to us as being. So is there anything else we need to do as far as sound meters?
So I think you would talk to Rob, had you, about,
Well, I've been working with him, we've been shooting back and forth a freestanding noise ordinance,
Right.
so that we don't have to go necessarily against the property owner, but whoever the violator is.
right,
I will say that it is true, and I know this because usually Monday, there's been a few Mondays this summer, I come into the office, and there are the emails and the telephone messages about, you know, noise. And there was a new one this weekend, out on the west end of town there. But the reoccurring ones had stopped. And these are apparently places where our boys in blue have come to visit. And people have apparently since then taken the message to heart. And I've not received complaints anyway, particularly from Broadview Road and a couple of places there that were very noisy and caused quite a bit of complaint. So the places that were offending don't seem to be offending now. So even really without a law with teeth in it right now, but apparently the boys and girl in blue are able to persuade people to.
But that's what we've done for many years. We get a noise complaint, we act on it, we talk to the people that are producing the noise music, and we get them to lower it down to a reasonable limit, depending on the hour of night. If it's 1 o'clock in the morning, step and on call for it. But if it's only 7 o'clock at night, it's a little bit different story. Like the last complaint up on Broadview Road was, there was a wedding going on at 7:30 at night. The two officers that were working, they dealt with an arrest, and as soon as they were cleared up, they went up there and they spoke to the people that were conducting the wedding. They turned the music down, and no further complaints that night.
I followed up with letters to those property owners as well. So,
I have mentioned a number of times on this topic that I have a neighbor and I have the same problem. And it finally came to a head 2 or 3 weeks ago. And at 11 o'clock at night, I texted him and I said, look, we need to have a solution here. And I did go up to the house and very nicely asked the folks, and they were mortified. They had no clue. They thought they were in the middle of the woods with nobody around. They were apologetic. They turned the music down. No real problem that weekend.
great.
it's at moments like this, I really miss Willie.
Who?
Miss
Willie Ward. Willie Ward used to live right next door to me. And this was back in the day when the Joyous Lake was open. And the Joyous Lake would sometimes go well into the night with a great deal of noise. And one night, weren't they all surprised when Willie Ward walked into the Joyous Lake and started his chainsaw? And that was the end of that noise.
You've given me food for thought.
You want to start your fire with as well?
Next time I hear a chainsaw, I'm gonna hide.
No, Willie's no longer with us. God rest his soul. But anyway, if we do enact a freestanding, if we still feel it's necessary to enact a freestanding noise law, yes, we're probably going to have to get updated equipment, because I guess those decibel readers we have now are very cumbersome and,
It's outdated.
yeah, right.
Way outdated.
So, we're probably talking somewhere around, based on that research that you did for me, thank you. I mean, it looks like we'd be spending somewhere around $800 or $900 for a reputable, good meter that would stand up in court, kind of thing. So, but we'll
Hopefully.
get to that, right? Hopefully,
Seems a little high, I would think you could get a couple for that.
maybe.
They
Again,
do
one of us-
run the gamut, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, you can spend thousands.
Yeah.
And you spent almost $10,000 for a.
But we spent under 200 and you saw what we got.
Yeah.
I did figure out how to make it hold a peak a little.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't prepared for that.
Well, it's got to hold up in court, and it's got to, be certified against the international standards.
Yeah.
Well, we'll deal with that when the time comes.
Good work, chief.
Thank you, Clinton.
Thank you,
Thank
Chief. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Give our best to the boys and girl in blue.
I will. Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
So if I may, I'll move on to the topic of the town inventory. Yeah, you want to say something first, Jake?
No public, right?
No, there
was no public who wished to be heard.
Do you wish to be here?
If possible.
Jack, do you want to talk for 2 minutes?
2 minutes, if you can give me 2 minutes.
Take 2 minutes.
We'll give you 2 minutes.
I'm here with my friend Gail Two Eagles, and the difficulty with sidewalks for wheelchair access, there's about 10, we've looked around, there's about 10 spots on the sidewalk that are, when they go down to the road, not to the sidewalk, are very steep grades that a power chair cannot maneuver. And I've talked to 4 of the power chair people, and we would like to ask if a study can be done of the sidewalks and their safety, because Donna down by family, Gail's power chair, they're afraid that they're going to fall over, and if they fall over in their power chair, it could be a problem. So if it was possible to somehow, I know it's a big thing, but to lessen the grade of that sidewalk where it goes down to the road. There's some that, well, what I've noticed in a couple instances, they've had to go across the road to the other side because they can't make that one. And one lady today was nearly hit because she's crossing in a non-crosswalk area.
Ooh, shouldn't do that.
Well, that's the only option they have. They can't go any further up the street because they're impeded by...
Where on the street was this?
This was down by the pizza place. There's a bridge down there, they're coming right out of...
So there's a crosswalk at Brook Road.
No,
and
farther
The next
up.
one is at Denny.
Right.
And there's one over by the bank,
Yeah, that's Brook Road.
Yeah.
No, down at the credit union.
Oh, the credit
The
union,
credit
yes,
union.
that's.
Yeah, the
what it was.
latest one.
Yeah, but that goes to the east side of the bridge, right?
Right.
Because the bridges, forget it, you can't, there's no getting a wheelchair across that bridge.
This issue-
Well, you know what, I'll tell you, first of all, the handicap accessibility of our sidewalks are terrible, and we apologize for that. Those sidewalks came in back in the 1980s, and this is before there was really a sensitivity to handicapped issues. And so, nice ideas were imprinted in concrete, but they were very incomplete ideas. And in fact, there were many areas in the town, when I came in first office in 2000, where there were no curb cuts at all. You'll see on some of those curb cuts where there's a real rough grain, we ground those to create those, because the state of New York didn't do that originally. There's, for instance, we have those 2, you pointed this out, I believe, those 2 handicap spots across from the village green by the church, but once you get out of the car, there's no getting onto the village green.
The other day, I had to walk, she wasn't around, I had to walk all the way up to Tinker Street.
And then
To
to get to
get
this
back to
end,
where we were, because I can't get up and that's a large curve there too.
right. And then you get to this end of town, you have a choice between getting run over by a car getting in or out of town hall or Vinnie's hardware store, or crossing the street where there's no accessibility at all, So it's terrible. Apologize for that. Now, as far as from 375 to the village green, there will be work commencing, not soon enough, but there will be work to improve that roadway. And certainly, because they're going to replace the drainage and all these things on that
The
road.
ponding the last rain was horrible.
Yeah, I know,
People
it's
couldn't
terrible,
get through.
yes. But that's why we got the funding.
Yeah.
So at least from 375 to the Village Green, we can begin to address the issue there. Then we still have issues going to this end of town from the Village Green. I don't know, how promptly we can jump on that. It does involve the state of New York, so it's never quick, it's never felicitous.
Yeah.
But we'll work on it. It's shameful, it is, and I apologize. But we're hoping anyway that we can address the issue from 375 to the Village Green.
Some time ago, we were presented, I think more than once, with similar issue that John presents here tonight about people with power chairs or whatever needing to get around. And I remember we were even asked to take the place of people who have to use those kinds of helps and try to maneuver around town, riding one of those chairs and see what it's like.
Yeah.
And that hasn't been done. And I think one of the reasons why it hasn't been done is because we're all aware of how lousy the situation is. I know that for me, it doesn't need to be proven.
Or it could be embarrassing. Right? Could be embarrassing not to be able to get around. You want to get up on a sidewalk and you can't do it, and you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it's
Well,
humiliating, let's put it that way.
Humiliating.
I'm sorry, Jen,
Yeah.
but when we were
It's
doing our walk,
dangerous.
when we were doing our walk for peace, Gail was in her power chair and she was leading the walk for peace up the sidewalk, but she had to turn out into the road, and then everybody in the walk for peace turned out into the road with her. And so that
She's
was
a good leader.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we followed her right along. But I knew that you were aware of it, and also power chairs weren't around that long ago either. So now power chairs have now become a form of transportation, a viable form, allowing people to get out of their house and get to places now.
Yeah.
So
It's like having wings or being able to walk again. It's quite a privilege. And for the most part, it's good. It's just those few places. It feels like you're going to fall straight forward.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's Jerry.
Well, I'd just like to say that the MHV bank that you were referring to on the other side of the bridge on Mill Hill, not being accessible, they were in the Fletcher Gallery before that, and I actually complained about that, because certainly nobody in a wheelchair or power chair could have ever gotten into that bank in any way, but even people that are just partially disabled, like me, couldn't deal with the steps, because for all the time they were there, and it was over a year or so, they never put in a handle on those doors so that people with mobility issues who can walk could even go up there. And then when they moved down here, and it's certainly not their fault now, they're completely accessible as a building with a sidewalk in front. But numerous backups have occurred on inbound 212 there, where somebody that we've seen several times in a wheelchair has to go off and go into the lane of traffic coming into town to be able to get across that bridge. And that's just absolutely unconscionable. But I do think there's a certain amount of hypocrisy on the part of the town board talking like this, and meanwhile the community center is as inaccessible as it is, with no ramp to a completely
Thank you.
TV station.
Thank you. Good
Thanks,
segue.
thanks for listening.
Thanks.
And, as far as the parking issue goes, I'll be happy to volunteer up on top of the mountain with the cars, because every Saturday,
He says this after the chief leaves.
every Sunday, I have to be down there as a kind of like a police guy, because they just park full in the church and our church people can't park.
Can you excommunicate them?
Not in my authority, no.
Exercise them?
Well, because an exercise machine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank
on
you for
this
your
point-
time.
On this point, I recently made a map of the town indicating present and past and needed crosswalks. And goes from down past the library, the old post office down to the other end of town. And I wanted to go to Mr. Uchiguchi in Poughkeepsie to talk to him about, what's his name?
Mr. Gordon, the
Tom
regional
Story.
director, or Tom Story in Kingston?
Tom Story.
In Kingston. Don't go to Poughkeepsie. You
No,
won't-
that's where Uchi Gucci is, he went state local.
And in any event, and I mentioned this at the Meet the Candidates night, that we need to increase several places where we have cut curb cuts, and as well as clean up the areas that need it now. And I will be very happy to bring that map in at our next meeting, and we can look over it and see what kind of changes or improvements need to be made to
Maybe
it.
drop it by the office tomorrow, and make copies and put it in people's folders so they can look at it before the meeting.
That's it.
You got your work cut out for you, Jay.
Yeah.
You'll be a busy guy.
Jay, you might have a volunteer to help you do that, I'll put her in touch with you. Who's interested in mapping all of the problems we're talking about.
I don't know. Let me get it, bring it in and dispense it, see whether we need, yeah, okay, good. Well, I'll bring it in, I'll dispense it, we'll see what kind of additional information people have to put into that.
Okay, can we move on?
Shannon?
All right, town inventory. So, the other night, you may have heard me say, express the opinion anyway. I think it's time for good to see you, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Nice evening.
The right time for the town to update its comprehensive plan. And my feeling, having gone through the experience of the town, I shouldn't say the experience because it was really my predecessor that had most of the experience of appointing a committee and the committee doing its work and the committee making its report. And it was pretty much done, and I received the report when I came into office. But I was very aware of the process that all went on behind that, which began with hiring a consultant for $50,000. Not budgeting for it, I had to pay for it. Anyway, what I would like to do, what I'm proposing that we do, is that rather than go out and hire consultants right away, that we begin the dialogue with the community. And perhaps, and I'm only thinking out loud with everybody, so please, if you've got better ideas for this, chime in. I was thinking, for instance, we could go to all the various boards and ask them to recommend somebody, either somebody sitting on their board or somebody who would be willing, that they thought, had the chops to serve on a board, maybe a board of 5 to 7 people or so, who could begin the process of just putting together public input and documentation and complaints and people's visions. I think that, we have an advantage now that we didn't have 15 years ago. There's far more social media and far more access to people in this digital age, so I don't know if we would necessarily, have to be mailing out questionnaires and stuff like that. Anyway, I really do think that we have the intelligence and the chops to at least begin a process of assembling all the ingredients for an update to a comprehensive plan. And then, if we need be, the following year, 2017, if we feel that we need particular expertise and legal advice, et cetera, to assemble the final document itself, well, then so be it. So that's my thought about possibly a project for 2016. So what I produced, and I've emailed to each of you, is an inventory that I've been working on. And it's just an inventory of things that we have where we are now. And I just give some examples of what this document seeks to accomplish. Now, as far as the language in this document, very much of the language in this document was simply lifted from Brown and Anthony in 1962, from Saratoga in 1999, from some other document sources. There is some, original language because there are some developments in the last few years since those documents were created. There are changes in the town.
Is
The
this
renovated buildings.
proposed comp plan that was never adopted?
No, 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 no.
What are you-
This is an
what are you referring to?
inventory.
Oh, the inventory.
This is just an inventory of what we
That
have,
you did.
that I put together,
Oh.
that I've assembled so far. And so to give you an idea of what you would find in this inventory is, for instance, we would have a link to the Brown and Anthony report, because I think it's still a valuable document, and I think that anybody who wanted to contemplate updating the comprehensive plan should at least know the last formally adopted comprehensive plan that we have. There would be links to there would be a link to a map of the Catskill Park. I mean, you would think, okay, but you should have a map. We're in the blue line. It makes us, it differentiates us. It's only the Catskill Park and the Adirondack State Park, and we're entirely under separate regulations than the rest of the state of New York. For instance, the question, why does the DEC run the Kenneth Wilson Camp and not the Parks and Recreation, which runs all the camps and all the rest of the state of New York? Well, because it's in the blue line, and so the DEC runs it. So there are things that are of significance so, you know, we should have a map. We should know what the blue line is and what we're into. We should have links to, let me just find other examples here. There's a long conversation in here about our topography, about our different soils. And, you know, why are soil studies so important? Because in the 1980s, Brown and Anthony back in the 1960s did a cursory soil report based on existing documentation. And it was based on that soil report that they determined what neighborhoods in the town of Woodstock should be more or less developed. Because if you have poor drainage, then you can't have septic systems, or at least you can't have many septic systems. And so this is how we came up with R8, R5, R3. This was refined in the 1980s. There was a study of our topography and soils done by the students and professors from the University of Pennsylvania, and they amassed a so-called Pennsylvania report. And there was a much deeper analysis of all our soils and topography and drainage, et cetera, which led to the 1989 zoning law, which replaced the 1965 zoning law, which created the larger zoning districts. And again, not because they just wanted to create larger zoning districts, but because those districts where there was less density, they had poor soils or steep slopes that would not accommodate septic systems. So there is a link to the soil studies. There is a link to the Esopus and Sawkill watersheds. A map that shows you just exactly what part of the town drains into the Hudson River and what part of the town ultimately drains into the Ashokan Reservoir. And you know, it's funny too, because ultimately it all drains into the Hudson in Sawgrass, because the Sawkill eventually flows into the Esopus as it travels north into Sawgrass. And the western end of town drains into these, you know, into the reservoir. So they all ultimately end up in the Hudson River. We should probably link to the updated FEMA maps when they become available, because I guess they're not yet, right? There is the Horsley-Witten report. Now, here was a report that was done in 1992 studying our aquifer. I mean, aquifers don't change in 20 years. I mean, they're sort of there for a geological period anyway, till the next ice age. But anyway, I mean, here's a report, and every once in a while people are tearing their hair out looking for the Horsley-Witten report. Well, we've digitized it now, so now we can put it on the town website, and just, so there it is. So when you're reading this report, and you see that there was a wellhead protection area delineation, well, by golly, you can go and read this very scientific analysis of our aquifer. I mean, this is the flavor of what I'm talking about. So we have a hyperlink, not a hyperlink, but a link to the Pennsylvania report, to the Woodstock Environmental Commission Open Space Plan, and to Chapter 202 of the Woodstock Code, which is our subdivision of land. And of course, we would include a link to our zoning law as well.
I just want to say,
Yeah.
I think it's invaluable that you have such a thorough history of the town through all the years it's been supervisor. And to be able to put, you know, I just saw this today myself, but to be able to put something like this together, it's 44 pages. It just has so much information, it has so much background information, to be able to put all this together because of your knowledge for all these years, it's just great.
Well, thank you. I'll take that. Thanks, Mom.
And you didn't know I was gonna say that, it was a surprise to you.
No, thank you, I appreciate
But
it.
I was, you know, I was looking.
It's a
over
fun
it.
effort, I'll tell you something. It's really, you know, we do live in a very interesting town. And it's interesting really because of so many of the foundation documents that have formed it. Now, for instance, here's another one, the MOU with the Department of Environmental Protection of the City of New York, which affects the whole western end of town. It's a document that's very important because they do subsidize septic tanks installation and also maintenance and things like that. It comes with, it comes with regulation. How about a hyperlink to a schematic of the Kingston water supply? Why not see where that pipe is running? Why not see what reservoirs they're actually using and which ones they're not? We have that, and I know you've seen a copy of this, Jay, the 2003, because Mr. Winkley made this document for us, the 2003 Woodstock Aquifer Wellhead Protection Program, where he not only delineated the entire aquifer feeding our municipal supply, but he also did an analysis with more and more restrictive criteria, indicating if the town were to dig an additional municipal well, felt that it should, where it should, and it pinpoints the location. And it's like more than 200 feet off a highway, and it's still up there this, and it's up there, and it's away from the stream, and it's, you know, it's just away from all these different things, and bang, there's the spot.
We're going to be meeting with him next Wednesday, right here at this table.
So, you know, we have that closed landfill. Every year we've got to spend money monitoring this damn thing. Well, why not have the most recent Clough Harbor landfill report out there so, you know, again, it's an important thing to have because, you know, people come up with ideas for that big lot. Gee whiz, why don't we do something with that landfill? Well, let's first find out something about it. Oh, well, here's a report. This is what they did last year. This is where the pollution is. And, you know, why not? Why, instead of tearing through her office or tearing through my office or tearing through upstairs to find these documents, bang, there it is right there in an inventory. Anyway, that's the flavor of it. So if you wanted to, you know, proceed with, you know, putting together a committee that would be willing to spend a little time thinking about our town. And I think now is the time. I mean, this digital age is affecting us, and we've just seen what, you know, a little blast on tourism does as far as, you know, our roadways are concerned. We've seen, we've felt the effects of Airbnb. All this requires thought. I certainly have my opinions about Airbnb, but that's not necessarily yours. I don't know if it's the community's opinion, I have no idea, and I think it's time for the community to weigh in on this and other issues like, we want to look at it in 10 years.
Had a huge article about how real estate is being sold in Woodstock through Airbnb.
Yeah. No, this is a very timely moment, I think, and something that I think we really, whether we proceed with this document or not, but I think it's time to proceed. I would really like, the reason why I'm presenting it to each of you is, I would really appreciate it if you would, and I'll make it available to the public as well, if you think there's anything missing in this inventory. Speak up, yes.
I just want to mention that even though we didn't adopt that last comprehensive plan, we did adopt, we worked on an executive summary.
When? Yeah, when did I adopt it? We're trying to find that. Chris?
He couldn't.
Yeah,
It was never
because I was
adopted.
involved in that.
Yeah, but never got it, and they never did the resolution, they talked about it, talked about it,
I
talked
thought
about
we
it.
did adopt it.
a copy of it.
I thought you
You have a
did.
copy of it, but
I thought,
I was off the board for 2 years. It didn't happen when I was on the board, so I was off for 2 years, and I swear that they adopted something.
I'm pretty sure we adopted it.
Cannot find it in minutes.
If somebody can find it on a tape, but
I'm very certain that we adopted the executive session.
You can't find it in
And-
the minutes of the meeting?
And-
Well, I have a copy of the
And
executive session.
yeah, I
Yeah,
have a
we
ton
all
of
do.
copies of the
Yeah.
executive summary, but I don't have it
suggest-
where they adopted it.
I suggest that.
That's what we're looking for, if anybody can
Mr.
find it.
Moran.
But even though we have a date of when, like the last time we worked on the executive summary and when we I mean, because you can go from that date.
The
You
minutes
can
are
ask
all
them,
up,
but
the
if it ain't
minutes
in
are
the
all up
books,
on
it
the
doesn't
web.
exist.
Well, he
Some
may
comment.
have some light to cast on it.
It's during Jeff Moran's
Oh,
term.
yeah, I know, yeah.
His first 2 years.
Yeah, but even Chris doesn't recall it being
No,
adopted.
no,
And
no,
he was
they-
the driver, he was the guy who was pushing this thing.
I know, it never,
And
it never
it just
did.
never happened.
They talked about
Anyway,
it,
it's
talked
really,
about it,
who
wanted it.
cares, you know, whether we did or didn't, you know, it's, even if they did.
It means it's-
That document is already 15 years old. It's time to
Yeah.
move
It
on
can't be
here.
15 years
Huh?
already.
It was
Yeah.
two-
It was done in 98 to
It
99.
was
Oh my
written,
gosh, it
That's when the
was-
data was collected, and then they wrote it and submitted it in 2000.
I mean, I was there, I was
Yeah.
part of it, I just
So
don't
it's,
remember.
so it's data that's more than
I guess it's
15 years old.
Wow,
Almost
wow. Time
16.
flies when you're having fun.
Yeah.
so you want to do it again, Iris?
I might.
Is it-
I hope you do.
My trouble is being on the computer.
Oh, well, I'll take them back.
And it's already happened.
I can
No, I
participate some other way.
Yeah. Well, so Jeremy, as you know, as I said 2 weeks ago, and I'm very interested as well.
Mhm.
So I'm very interested in being part of this. I think it's timely, very timely.
Mhm.
Very timely, and well done finding all those links. So
Mhm.
that's a great start. And,
Well, again, if you would all just look at this, and I invite the public, I invite anybody who's listening, definitely members of the town board, if you find anything missing, if there are glaring errors, if there's, you know, I mean, let me know. Because I would like to disseminate this, but I would like to do it with the board's imprimatur.
Well,
I don't just want to
I
fly out on my,
I wouldn't hold off on
Finding a
sending
committee.
it out. I would,
well, I'm going to hold off until I hear satisfaction
Well,
from at least a majority of you.
I'm satisfied
I
with
haven't
it's a
read
good
it, but I
start.
saw that you sent it out email.
Mhm.
Is the entire document there?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's all in that.
Okay, so then I
Yes.
have it at home.
Yeah.
I think it's in good enough shape to get a committee working on it. I mean, they can pull things in and add, and,
Mhm.
I mean, we can all add as we go.
What did you want to do, submit this to each board and ask if they had somebody?
No,
that-
I would, listen, again, thinking out loud. Just send a little note to each board, say this is what we're cooking up. And if you would like to designate a representative to serve on a steering committee, we'll call it, or whatever, of 5 to 7 people, who would be willing to read this document and to begin the process of assembling a comprehensive plan update for the town.
I would move on that. I don't think you need to try and make it a better document at this point. And I think, you know, in 6 months, we may say, oh gee, that should be in there. I wouldn't wait for that point.
Okay,
So-
well, I'll
Yeah,
at
there's
least.
a danger of passing out a document saying this is now complete and perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a
This-
danger of that, yes. Which I would not do, even with all the editing in the world. I know this town. And then there's this,
So you
we have
getting started?
demographically, we are the most educated.
Not that I've looked at it in depth.
We are, demographically, we have the highest
Plus, I've
number
read
of
about it.
professionalism. Demographically, we have the highest proportion of self-employed, which means people, that everybody's an expert. So I would never put out a document saying this is perfect.
Which means about 3/4 are sitting at this board.
That's
now.
right, that's right.
Kenneth and I are good with starting with this document, are you?
Yeah?
I'm fine with it, I looked it over.
I would,
Well, okay, let me just give Jay a chance to look at it, because he just got it today, so,
but if Jay signs off on it in the next week or
and
so.
I'll take the initiative.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, that's it. Should we go to resolutions?
Do you want to talk about the flag football?
The flag football, well, I did, originally I had that on the agenda, I took it off the agenda. I don't know, do you want to talk about it? I mean, my feelings are, I have to say, I'm a little sort of reluctant.
I'd like to say a word.
Yes, say a word.
I contacted this guy, his name is Petrillo, and, because I know nothing about flag football, I've asked a few people about it since then, and I've got a, in any event, he emailed me and he said that this past Saturday, they would be getting together at the field out in Olive. You know, not for a game, but for whatever. In any event, so I went there 2:30, nobody showed up. I contacted him by email and he said, oops, but there is going to be an event this coming weekend, Friday night, Saturday afternoon. I told him I would go back out there Saturday afternoon and try to get a sense of what this is all
Back in
about.
Spokane, you work?
Yeah, no, Olive,
Olive.
yeah, Avery Field.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not too close, and one of the things that I'm interested in is how many Woodstock young people will be there.
He claimed 27.
Well, that's, he claims he had 27 last season,
Mhm.
but following that up, he didn't have any sense of what the numbers would be this year.
Mhm.
In any event, so I'm curious, I'm interested, I don't mind putting in the time, go out there and find out. And to make a report to the sport about
Okay.
my sense of it. In the meantime, it strikes me that the $500 contribution is a little large.
Mhm.
And I would be looking into the future in my own mind, if that's even
Mhm.
possible. I would want to knock it down probably to about 200, maybe 150, something like that, depending on the possible attendance of Woodstock children. I certainly want to support it. But, and this issue about the contribution makes me want to ask, I can't insist, that the town could very easily consider making a $200 contribution to our own CSAC committee's kiosk plan. This came up before, but it was turned down. And we're talking about $500, and which it isn't going to happen, but I think that we ought to, again, reconsider giving a taste of some money to the kiosk. And one other factor, because I was told that money is really tough and tight and so forth, our friend Dominic, who did the traffic control at the center of town on weekends, had been let go a while ago. He earned $14.82 an hour. And I strongly suggest that we put him back to work, because it is a matter of safety as well as convenience. And for what really is a very small amount of money, I think that we should rehire him to go back to work. And this
If you
is
want
all-
to drop by the office tomorrow, Jay, we'll talk about that.
What are we talking about?
Just what you brought up.
I mean, I don't think,
I'll talk to you about it.
I don't think we give 500 to, in many of our organizations, we just give $100 to.
Yeah.
So to give even 200 to me is like, I want to make sure this is something really legitimate that's working and.
Well, I'm going to wait for Jay's report. I think it's wonderful that you're going to go do that, Jay. And you should also find out what they charge, what the
They charge the kids.
tuition cost is for each of those kids.
Yeah, I want to get the
Yeah.
complete lay of the land.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
I'd be fine waiting for Jay's report, but I agree with what Ken put in an email the other day, that, this thing about in the middle of the year, especially
Mhm.
with these economic situations and conditions, we're asking town employees to tighten belts, to watch spending, we're taking measures.
Mhm.
And then for them to just come in the middle of the year and say, oh, for like $500,
Yeah,
let them come to the budget hearings and make a proposal for next year.
Where are they out of?
That's the other thing, they're in all over.
I think it's an it might be associated with the school district.
Okay.
Well,
But I mean, that's an open question, it's really a policy question for us, is whether we want to start making contributions to organizations which are essentially outside of Woodstock, but have Woodstock participants, because there's, theater groups and music groups and scout groups.
Yeah,
and,
where do you stop it?
I mean, we contribute to the soccer team and I think the Little League, but that's sort of based on, they're gonna use that money to,
We usually don't use a field. We don't
Yeah,
use a
that's-
division.
to maintain the fields,
Mhm.
and which was, it seemed to be quite reasonable, we'll just be giving money outside, really no physical presence in Woodstock seems to be a big question that we ought to look at.
We did
So
set
what-
precedent at one time, I know we did give, on a couple occasions, to Babe Ruth, which is the next step up from
Yeah.
Little League, which had Woodstock participants, but was over in Shokan.
Okay.
So there is some
Well,
of
yeah, to a great extent, that's exactly why I chose to go out there and go back again and find out, get a fuller picture of what's happening there.
Okay. Shall we carry on?
Please.
Okay, I'd like to offer the following resolutions. Be it resolved to accept minutes for meetings held on August 18 and September 8, 2015.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved to accept the town clerk's report.
Second.
All in favor? Be resolved to authorize transfers per the transfer sheet.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be resolved to authorize payment of audited vouchers in the amount of $150,528.50. All in favor?
Did you bring me a couple of offers?
Pam told me that she
They were
mentioned those two, that they were very routine, I promise.
I know, she sent me copies of the
Yeah,
vouchers, I have
okay.
no problem.
Yeah, I didn't bring them, so, I thought she told me she was gonna ask you if you wanted me to bring them, and she didn't
Okay.
give me a message one way or the other, so I didn't. But I do want to share with you, town board, a little moment for you. I got a letter today from the state of New York. This is like the Office of Budget, Court System, blah, blah. Anyway, as you know, every year, we go down there and make ourselves a big pain in the ass at the court, auditing them. Because it's in the law, you're supposed to do this. And towns don't do it. We're like one of the few that do. So here's this letter from this guy saying, we want a copy of your resolution, and a copy of your, of your audit report, which I happily PDF'd and sent them on. They must have knocked it off their chair, because nobody does this.
Nobody does.
We've been doing it for 15 years. So, anyway, we are fastidious here.
I guess we are.
Be it resolved to accept the resignation of Cameron Hommel as recreation aide effective September 25, 2015. Second. All in favor?
Do we want to thank him?
Well, if it were for years of service, yes, but
He just started
it
it.
just hasn't been years of service.
On this next resolution, what, is this all the projects or just?
This is this is the project, this is not the Route 212. We'll be doing a resolution like this at some point. No, these are the projects that are in the west end of town and John Joy Road.
Okay.
Those are all
The culverts.
The culverts,
So
yes.
Lane Road, Reynolds, John Joy, what was the fourth one?
Isn't there one up on Mink Hollow?
I guess
There's
maybe
someone in Hollow Bridge.
Whereas the town of Woodstock request for qualification evaluation committee has recommended Malone McBroom for this project, and as the town of Woodstock supervisor has permission for the subsidiary agreement between the town of Woodstock and the governor's office of school and recovery to sign documents pertaining to this project, and as the governor's office of school and recovery has reviewed the process utilized by the town of Woodstock in its procurement of engineering services and consents to the town entering into a contract with the aforementioned firm, now therefore be it resolved, the town of Woodstock Town Board, acting as the governing authority of the town of Woodstock, certifies approval of the town to execute a contract with Malone McBroom and to perform engineering design services for the above-named project, and authorizes the supervisor to sign such contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And be it resolved to authorize the highway superintendent to advertise for a worker for the highway department.
Second.
And this is, of course, Mr. Hopper was leaving us.
Mr. Russell.
Well, yes, will be leaving us. And so this is
Mr. Hopper didn't know he was leaving.
All in favor? That's all our business.
Did we have that one to reschedule the special meeting?
Oh, special meeting. Oh, yes, I didn't have page 2. Be resolved to schedule a special meeting of the Woodstock Town Board Resort for 5 p.m. at the town office on Monday, October 5, where the town clerk shall present to the town board of supervisors tentative 2016 budget.
Second.
Be it further resolved to authorize funds for the supervisor to be able to.
Call the vote on the first one.
All in favor?
I got a question.
Yeah, what's your question?
You know, down Mill Hill, the track of, drainage, whatever
Yes.
you want to call it, right?
Mhm.
Isn't that ours that we put in for?
No, State of New York put that in
Was
in
it
1980.
in 1980?
Yeah, that's when the sidewalks were built too.
It was incredible, I was in the parking lot.
No, because they're all stopped
When it
up.
started to rain.
Oh, they haven't worked for
It just
years?
went-
Yeah.
You just noticed?
Water.
Well, no, because this time, no, I walk over, I noticed it, but this time there was water all running
Yeah.
down.
It was a flood, it was
Yeah.
dangerous to drive through.
Yes. Listen, the only good news is that's how we got this thing funded.
I wonder who that someone was.
Is it possible to have our town workers who generally get to things a lot sooner than the state
No,
to clean up those boxes at the bottom and the clog up?
nope, nope, State of New York absolutely will prohibit us from doing any work on their property.
Wow.
Yeah, we're very,
But we can plow the county roads.
huh?
We can plow the county roads.
That's different.
Well, only by
County's
agreement.
different.
We have a special.
Only by agreement.
So do we
But,
do the sidewalks when we do the sewage?
I'm sorry?
Do we do the sidewalks when we do
That
the
was in the
sewage?
80s.
Yeah, I know, about 83, 84.
Yeah, it's just when we did them, yeah.
Always-
Most of them. There were some that we didn't,
What's
but
that?
most of them were done. Some of them were done by the state of New York. The ones on Mill Hill Road were done by the state. The ones up in town were actually done, I believe, by Verizon, or whatever the phone company was at that time. It wasn't Verizon. But the phone company wanted to bury lines, and so they made some sidewalks. And then the sidewalk going down Rock City Road was even another entity, and I can't remember who that was. I was here, it was in the early part of this century when that went in, but I can't remember when or who the entity was that actually did that work. But it wasn't the state, it wasn't the county, it was some other entity. So that's the scoop.
That's a tough sidewalk too. to manipulate.
I mean, I remember when they were there.
Mhm.
I have a friend who, has some visual issues, and she said, she cannot walk down there. It's very
For the
difficult.
cemetery?
Well, the whole
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
from the community center into town, it's all uneven,
It's a lot better than it was.
Yeah, some parts are better, yes, yeah.
Yeah, a
Well,
lot
it's
of-
beautiful.
A lot of, some parts are better,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's tough.
Are we still meeting at 5 on the 29th?
Frosty.
Oh, the 29th.
Yeah, what was that for?
That's all
Those
it
are the
is.
bids.
Oh, what bids are those?
Yeah, I have
For the water line.
For the water
the
line.
same reason.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes,
federal pack? I haven't had anybody ask for any packets, have you?
You won't, because Bernier and I have shipped them out.
Oh, he's gonna do it all?
Yes,
Because I've got
yeah.
a set of something in my safe, I have no idea where it is.
Yeah, well, that's in case somebody shows up and wants.
And wants a hard copy? Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the 29th at 5, right?
4.
Yeah.
4.
Was it 4 or 5?
Yeah.
I thought it was 5.
I thought it was 4.
I have 5.
You have
Or
5?
maybe, actually, maybe the
Bids
the
may-
documents have to be submitted by 4.
Oh,
I think we
okay.
scheduled the meeting for 5.
Okay.
So why don't we just say 5?
Yes.
Okay.
You know,
That way, the worst will be is an hour late, other than an hour early, sitting here cooling our thumbs.
we can tell jokes.
Well, it says submit it to the town clerk no later than 5 p.m.
So there,
About
so that's
September
fine, so it's 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
What day of the week is that?
Tuesday or Monday? What is it, 29?
Tuesday.
I think it's a Tuesday.
Tuesday, it's another Tuesday.
Okay, should we get out of here?
Please, yeah.
No,
Pizza's getting cold.
no,
You got something else?
there's one more thing.
Yeah, what's that?
Saturday.
Oh, the grand opening. Oh, please come to the grand opening, Randy. We'd love to have you there to complain about our lack of access to the.
Hey, tomorrow's my birthday.
Happy
It's the
birthday.
first year that the radio station has been on the air. 365 days. The least I think, if we're gonna get a TV station together, of which, by the way, 8 producers that I'm authorized to represent, want the name Woodstock TV, and we're working on it, because we are Woodstock TV, and nobody else is doing any TV here. But it would be nice if those of us who are working on that, and who have made such offers of clearance to help the TV station come back, and actually provide equipment to do it, would have direct access to our TV station. For those of us like me who can't walk upstairs, that'd be a nice birthday present. And the drummers were
Thanks,
kicked
Gary.
out of the community center for one weekend because of the Woodstock Film Festival. And the general manager of that film festival, 8 years ago, I believe, put a permanent ban and claimed that he would arrest me if he ever saw me at any of his venues. Well, if the TV station was open and my show was on a Friday night, and I got somebody taking expensive tickets at the only way to get into that TV station who still has an open threat to arrest me, that's another reason why I need a
I
separate.
told you I'd escort you in.
You'll have to if
I
we're
will.
a red show instead.
I will.
Be happy to.
Anyway, hope to see you all there.
Jackson Bailey, put that.
Move to adjourn.
It'll be a typical Woodstock.
Kathy,
Will that be a ban?
Kathy.
Be a little music.
What we say